Okay, well, I'm Gary Friedman, and I'm from Bar Harbor, and I chair the board of A Climate to Thrive, which I'm going to tell you about today, and I also chair the Bar Harbor Town Council. And I thought I'd start with a story. It's in the afternoon of January 20th, 2016. I'm standing on the stage of the neighborhood house in Northeast Harbor. It's 10 minutes to when our event's supposed to start, and the room is not even a third full. And I turned to the person next to me on the stage and said, "You think anyone's going to show up?" And 6 months earlier, my wife Glennon had said to me, "What are we going to do about climate change? We have to do something." And not really knowing what to do, I did what maybe a lot of Mainers do, which is get a bunch of their friends to come to a potluck supper around the kitchen table and talk about it. And that grew into the MDI Climate Solutions potluck group. and you know, we had a lot of ideas, and we thought like we were starting to maybe get somewhere. And the next month, you know, we all brought another friend, so we had like 20 people around, and that was in August of 2015. And then we started like this, you know, this online listserv, and like pretty soon there were more people than would fit in our living room, dining room, kitchen. And so that fall, we said, well, who else might be out there besides, you know, our friends and our friends' friends? Who else might be out there on the island that wants to do something about climate change, really make a difference? And we thought, well, okay, we'll put on this event at the neighborhood house. It's, you know, this holds about 150 people. It's in the center of the island. Do it on a Sunday afternoon in January when there's nothing else going on. Have food and music, an interesting speaker, and like see what happens. So that's what we did. And I'm back on the stage, and then I start to see this line forming. And then someone tells me that people are like out the door onto the street. And we had to wait till like 2:15, but over 200 people came and filled the neighborhood house and listened to us, listened to our speaker that we brought from New Hampshire to talk about what they'd done in their community with energy issues. And what that grew into was A Climate to Thrive. We called that event A Climate to Thrive. It was just kind of an experiment. You know, let's see how people would respond. The idea was you turn climate change on its head, like right upside down, because climate change is such an overwhelming, almost like you get a hopeless feeling. But if we talked about it in terms of how we're going to thrive, because it's going to, all the climate solutions that we could think of, we're going to strengthen the local economy, the community, create jobs. It was actually going to make a stronger community. And then the other thing we did with this event was we said, our mission is to make MDI energy independent in 15 years, 2030. And you know, I was in the post office one day, and a friend of mine who runs a restaurant came up to me and said, "You know, Gary, that name's kind of like, what does that mean? That's kind of stupid. And like, you know, 15 years? That's never going to happen. Why don't you come up with something more practical?" You know, and that was a pretty standard response, except that just a couple weeks ago, the UN came out with a report that said, if we don't get our act together by 2030, we're going to have catastrophic climate change. We've got to do something about it. And what we're actually seeing, what we knew even in 2015, is that energy independence, which is a good Maine kind of term, you know, like what does it really mean? It's open to debate, but you know, fossil-free future, net zero, you know, whatever you want to call it, that's completely technologically possible, and now it's financially viable. There's no reason not to do it except for our political and community will. So, like, where this has to do with the democratization of our economy is twofold. And I'll talk about it a little bit. I'm going to talk about mostly what A Climate to Thrive is, but what my view of it is that not only by generating our own power, by reducing the amount of power that we consume to the lowest amount possible, and then generating our own power, not only does that democratize the system because it takes us off the centralized power generators and it transforms the electric grid as we currently know it, but it engages people in the work that needs to be done to actually create a different future. And really, if there's like any long-lasting value in a climate to thrive, which, when we meet our goal in 2030, we're going to say, well, that was great. Now we're energy independent, but we will have created a stronger movement toward economic democracy because we will have engaged people in this activity. We'll have empowered them. We will have helped them fulfill the best in terms of what they see for their community. So here's what happened in January 2016, less than 3 years ago. We said that we were going to pursue several different areas, and then people broke out into groups to work on those things. There was solar power, energy conservation, zero waste, there was public policy and local food production. And so we had breakout groups with leaders in each of those, and those are the areas that we initially pursued. But what we realized early on was that this project was only going to succeed if we could show tangible results and show people that it could actually work. So the first thing that we did was, I'm on the Barbertown Council. I got the council to agree to put solar panels on the Public Works garage, so that powers that operation. And then the next thing we did, which took town meeting vote, was to put panels on the pole barn out at Public Works for a community solar farm. And talk about the democratization of our economy. A solar farm is basically a cooperative. They set it up like a condominium type of arrangement, but people put in the money that they can according to the power that they need. They own and maintain these solar panels jointly, and then the power is credited to their accounts according to what their share in it is. I don't think I have a picture of that, but here are some of the members of that first community solar farm, which was 2015 in Bar Harbor. So we've organized ourselves in terms of lots of different projects. So we have a whole push on energy efficiency. We did a Weatherize MDI program where we offered free home audits and then the opportunities for people to do all kinds of energy conservation improvements on their homes with support from a local bank and Efficiency Maine. Let's see. And then we distributed LED light bulbs, and now we're working in partnership with Efficiency Maine to contact businesses who qualify for 75% financing for LED light conversion. We ended up with 76 installations, and we doubled the photovoltaic capacity on the island in a few months. And our goal, to reach energy independence by 2030, our goal is to double the amount of solar power on the island every year. So, this was like our first thrust. This is continuing. We're going to have a focus on businesses going solar in 2019 because the economics just pencil out so well if you can depreciate the systems and take those tax advantages. But we're now working on larger scale projects, which I think, this is a map showing where all the photovoltaic systems went in 2017. So now we're looking for large scale solar sites. And we understand that it's going to take way too. One thing we started out with was a student at College of the Atlantic did this program, and he figured out that if we put solar panels on every south-facing roof on the island, that we could provide 85% of the electricity that we currently consume when the sun is shining. So that's when the sun's shining. That's a big qualifier, but still, that was like an astounding number for us. Just putting panels on every roof. This one young man who's been lobstering for 4 years was saying how the Gulf of Maine's changing, and he's not sure, if he's going to be able to to rely on lobstering as his income in the future. And then this young woman said, and my family's had a home on Bass Harbor Marsh for generations, and I don't think I'm going to be able to live there because with storm surges and sea level rise, it's going to be underwater in 15 years. And then they turned to Janet and our local rep, Brian Hubble, who was there with her, and said, this is going to affect us. This is really important that you do something about it. You're our leaders. You're the people that have the power to do something. We need you to do something now. And that was an extremely moving and powerful moment, I think, for all of us in the room. I want to give you some figures too that I find pretty interesting. Being on town council, if I'm going to convince my other councilors to do anything, it's usually like a bottom line kind of thing, dollars and cents. So one of the things that we used to convince them to go the solar route was that it's going to stabilize our power costs into the future. So they the big thing that councils hate is what are our unknown future increases that are going to cause property taxes to rise. So solar stabilizes that, and then savings over a period of years. That Tremont landfill is going to save the town of Tremont $250,000 more than that over the first 25 years. So that's pretty compelling. But MDI, 4 towns, 10,500 year-round population, exports $50 million a year for fossil fuels. That's how much we spend. Well, not completely. It's electricity, it's heating oil, it's propane, it's gas. That's how much we're sending off the island. Just think if we were to take a fraction of that back. And I always use the example of our farm, Barbara Community Farm. We're spending $2,000 a year on electricity. We wipe that out. Now we pay 15 and change a month for the service charge. And that's money that's going back into our farm to hire additional people or maybe plant some fruit trees or other things. But that's money that's being reinvested in the community. And then you look at the state of Maine with billions of dollars leaving the state every year for fossil fuels. That's a really compelling argument for a visionary energy policy. And not only do we have to do it if we're going to survive as a species, but it pays. I'm really cognizant of the fact that most people can't afford electric vehicles, and even getting a loan for for solar panels is tough for a lot of working class people. So one of the things that we want to work on is different ways of financing solar and energy conservation. I'll say that's the first thing. The second thing is reorganizing utilities. Their utilities are following a 100-year-old model that is just completely inappropriate for the 21st century, and they need to be in the business of not just supplying energy, but of facilitating the kind of society that the 21st century society, and that's going to take a massive reorganization. One thing I like about solar power is that it's really kind of a way of undercutting and usurping the system. And that's why the utilities are fighting it so hard, because if they stick with their model, they're going to die. They're dinosaurs. They either have to reform themselves like Green Mountain Power in Vermont. That was our speaker last year, or they're going to die. But to the first point, there are ways that could be allowed just by regulatory change. For example, financing all kinds of energy improvements through the meter. Right now you have to get a consumer loan, to put in solar panels if you don't have the cash. You could get a home equity loan, but all those, presuppose a certain credit rating. But if you use the value of the meter, as long as that meter's running on that building, someone's going to be paying the bills. So you don't have to worry about, if the homeowner moves or whatever. So if you can just show that the costs of the improvements are going to, that the cost of paying that back is less than what you're paying through the meter now, you should be able to finance all that stuff. And that's what utilities should be doing in the future is, instead of, their current model is we've got to sell more power. That's the only way we can make more money, or they build new power lines. That's why you have CMP doing this thing, because it's a guaranteed rate of return on that power line coming from Quebec Hydro down to Massachusetts. They get guaranteed rates of return on any improvements they make in our systems. So that's got to change to where they've got access to massive amounts of capital that should all be poured into homes and businesses, upgrading their energy systems and paying it back through the meter, and it's going to be less than what you're paying now. Thank you. So we have people coming from around the state to talk about how we're going to pass a visionary, comprehensive energy plan for the state of Maine that has a goal of making this state energy independent by 2030. And we have Speaker Sarah Gideon is behind this, and we're working with legislators on both sides of the aisle. But if we get even close, that's going to be economic democracy in action. Thank you.